Khamzat Chimaev and Dricus Du Plessis had a run-in ahead of their marquee fight at UFC 319 this weekend. There were no fists, insults, or dollies flying for this one, fortunately, but both fighters did take the opportunity to measure up to each other ahead of their championship bout. We'll dig into the MMA news after I momentarily wax poetical on the meaning of life. Welcome to My Fitness Fight, the channel where we form a phalanx to battle our demons and share memes and chase dreams along the way. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and always stay fighting fit and ready to follow Big John's advice. Protect yourself at all times. We are just days away from UFC 319, where Dricus Du Plessis defends his middleweight title against the undefeated Khamzat Chimaev. But days before they'll step into the octagon, these two had a face-to-face encounter that's got the MMA world buzzing. Let's break down their run-in at the hotel and see what's being said about this epic clash. From what I understand, this was the original clip that got posted on Instagram by an account called Alan Finfu JJ. I'll make an effort to track down that link and include it in the description. And it was posted on X, the platform formerly known as Twitter, by Jake Gerber MMA. Let's watch the full video with sound.
How you man? You good? Yeah. You too, and you too, man. Have a good weekend. See you on fight, man. It's gonna be a good one. Let's do it.
Jake Gerber did mention that Khamzat looks absolutely massive, which is true. And there were a number of people in the comments talking about how Khamzat looks much bigger than Dricus, and an equal number of people pointing out that Khamzat is closer to the camera, and because of that, and because of the angle, he looks bigger than he actually is. And I don't have their stats in front of me, but I think Khamzat is a little bit bigger. However, I doubt the size difference is that significant. And if you've ever seen Daniel Cormier fight the guys in the heavyweight division, then you know that that doesn't necessarily make a massive distance. That doesn't necessarily make a massive difference. Now let's take a look at another angle. Apparently someone else was filming at the same time, which makes me wonder if this encounter was as organic as we're being led to believe it is. This one was posted on X by an account called MMA Orbit, and it cited UFC Embedded as the original source. However, I wasn't able to track down a link for that, so this is the video posted on X by MMA Orbit.
Already. You man. Already. You man. You good? Good. See you, man. You too, and you too, man. Yes, man. Have a good weekend. Yes, man. See you on fight night, man. It's gonna be a good one. Let's do it. Of course. He was very respectful. He came over and said hello, and I mean, so the fight's happening on Saturday night. People aren't paying to see this. Yeah, it could have gone either way, but now we know. Already. You man. You good?
Now this is a much better angle, and in this case, Dricus is a little bit closer to the camera, and I would say Khamzat still looks a little bit bigger, but now you can see that they're obviously similar-sized men, and Dricus even joked about it later on in an interview, saying that he ran into Godzilla and that Khamzat is 8 feet tall, and I think that that is really a great way of summarizing how professional and wholesome this encounter really is. And I gotta be honest, I love the fact that this is kind of going viral and getting talked about a lot, even though it's not some big drama. It's not two guys shouting across a hotel lobby, or as I alluded to early, throwing a dolly and a bunch of other crap at a bus, or, you know, making threats of doing stuff outside the octagon. This is very professional, and I'm sure that both of these guys have said stuff about what they think they can do to each other inside the octagon, but that is part of their job. It's part of their job to think about that, it's part of their job to prepare for that, and it's part of their job to talk about that and give answers to these questions that they're being asked by the media that are entertaining and interesting to people. And they know that that is what's expected of them and what's needed in order to take them to the next level in terms of their career. Because beyond fighting success and what they actually get paid for the fights they do in the UFC, MMA fighters can create massive personal brands. You look at, for example, Mighty Mouse, who has a ton of stuff attached to his name outside of just fighting. You look at Paige Van Zandt, who was never even an especially successful MMA fighter, but she was able to take the opportunity that she had for the exposure she had with the UFC and turn that into a combat sports career, as well as a Instagram influencer career. And it's great to see that more and more people are starting to understand this blueprint for being a professional fighter, which was really laid out by Conor McGregor. And of course, you can agree or disagree with the way that he did it, and you can like or not like him for his antics. But ultimately, you have to admit that even though Conor McGregor was an extremely exciting fighter, he was the first two-weight champion to hold 2 different belts at the same time, and he was a very exciting fighter to watch with epic knockouts. But that wasn't the only thing. But there have been many fighters before him that were just as good and just as exciting in the ring, if not more so. You think about guys like Anderson Silva and Vitor Belfort. It's hard to say that anyone was more exciting than that kind of fighter, or Clay Guida. It depends on your preference. It depends on what type of fighter you most like watching, whether you're in it for the knockouts, or the all-out brawls, or the pure heart. But ultimately, in order to be more than just a successful fighter, in order to create a significant personal brand and have an impact and build a fan base that is going to stick with you even when you're not a professional fighter anymore. Think about Michael Bisping and Dan Hardy. These are both guys who at one time were pretty successful UFC fighters. Michael Bisping was briefly the middleweight champion and was a very high-level fighter throughout his career, and now he is a pretty successful content creator. He has his own YouTube channel, he has his own businesses associated with that, and if these guys are smart, then that's what they're going to do in the future. And when it comes to things like getting brand deals or business partners or investment, this kind of interaction that we're seeing right here is going to be a whole lot more valuable to them than doing something crazy. But I do want to mention something that I saw a few people point out in the comments, and it's absolutely correct. That is that these guys are sizing each other up right here. You can see that Khamzat was already thinking about how big Du Plessis is, what his reach looks like, how his reflexes are going, how attuned his reflexes are, and Du Plessis, since he didn't initiate the interaction, was a little bit slower to start thinking about that. But you can see when he reaches out here and touches him on the shoulder, he's definitely thinking, okay, this is exactly how far away his jaw is. And of course, they've still got the official stare down at the weigh-ins and the stare down in the cage right before the fight starts. But these two guys have been thinking about fighting each other for the past however long it's been. I think this might have been a late notice matchup, but even so, they've been thinking about fighting each other for a while, and I can guarantee you they're going to be spending the next few days until the fight actually happens thinking about it, analyzing possibilities, envisioning their victory, and having been this close to each other, having clasped hands, having reached out and tapped the other guy on the shoulder, that is going to make it that much easier for them to really envision every single detail of what it's going to be like in there. So I guarantee you that this is not just them doing a little media spot or anything like that. Both of them are thinking about the fight right now. Both of them are mentally measuring the space between them, the length of their reach, the exact height off the ground of their chin. And you can see that they're both very professional, very composed, very relaxed. But that's the thing, is that when you get into this level of training, you can be thinking about exactly what the fight's going to be like in a few days and still be completely relaxed because you're not there yet. You don't need to be there yet. You don't need to be there until the moment actually arrives. And until you get there, you might as well prepare for it in every way that you can, which in this case includes measuring up to each other. And I was already excited for this event, but now I'm even more excited, really looking forward to this fight. And the thing is, I actually don't care who wins. I'd kind of like to see Dricus win, just because he's the champion, and it seems like we don't have a lot of long reigning defending champions right now. And on the one hand, that's great because it means there's a very high level of competition. But on the other hand, I think it's really good for the sport, for building up super fans when you have people who win over and over and over again. But on the other hand, Khamzat is really popular and he's undefeated, so him winning is going to have just as good of a story behind it. So I really don't care who wins. I just hope that they both are still healthy when the bell rings. That's actually what they're talking about here. They're saying, hey, I'm glad you're healthy. Looking forward to it. Thanks for showing up. All that kind of thing. I know that Khamzat has mentioned that he thinks a lot of fighters are ducking him and are trying to avoid fighting him. So he was grateful that Dricus is not doing that. And I just hope that it's a great fight. And I hope that there's a decisive victory so that there's no whining one way or the other over whether the decision was correct or not. But I also hope that no one gets injured and that both these guys are able to get back to it soon so that we can have either a reigning champion who's actively defending his belt or a new champion who's going to face his first challenger. All right, thanks for watching. Remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel so that you can come back and watch the next one.